The following is a special presentation from 11 Alive News. Up next on The Reveal.
Do you think officers put her in a position to be assaulted?
100%, yes, I do.
We uncover explosive claims made by a dead whistleblower against Georgia's Department of Juvenile Justice.
Welcome to the world of geofencing. But does this high-tech way of advertising go too far?
That sort of advertising does raise a number of ethical issues.
You didn't change the test score? No. You didn't change the answers?
A decade after one of the largest education cheating scandals in the nation, a convicted teacher remains defiant.
The tire just flew off and hit my car.
They are freak accidents that could have been prevented.
It was complete chaos when a tire broke loose in the middle of the freeway.
How a simple device could save lives.
From our Midtown studios in Atlanta, this prime-time edition of The Reveal begins now with our multi-Emmy and National Moral Award-winning team of investigators.
Welcome to The Reveal, a show where our investigations are making an impact.
We have all searched for something online only to find similar ads blanket our social media the next day. But some marketers are tracking you physically using the phone GPS to send ads based on the places you go. Privacy experts say it is invasive and want policymakers to do something about it. You may be good at keeping a secret, but your phone is terrible at it. It can tell marketers every place you go. Work, the grocery store, a walk on the Beltline.
Personally, I don't really have much to hide.
But even those willing to give up some privacy for the perks of our digital life feel some places should be off limits, like the hospital.
Yeah, definitely not a big fan of that.
I feel like at the hospital that's taking it too far.
But that is exactly the type of location a lawyer, hospice, or health insurance company might want to target using geofencing. Justin Croxton, the managing partner of Propellant, explains.
We can go inside of our technology platform and build a virtual fence. Literally a virtual fence just around the contours of this building.
And we're talking about airspace, so it doesn't require really any permission to do it.
It doesn't require permission to do it.
And once you cross that invisible line, the person who paid to have it built can then start sending you ads and even track some of your movements for the next 30 days. I drove around Metro Atlanta with a coworker visiting courthouses, emergency rooms, and car dealerships. We noticed a few ads from competitors while flipping through our social media feeds. Coincidence? Maybe.
Wow.
But when we got to Planned Parenthood, we received information on how to get a 3D model of our unborn baby.
Photos from an ultrasound or a video from an ultrasound.
An article on caring for newborns, and even an ad for a pro-choice group.
That's crazy.
That sort of advertising does raise a number of ethical issues.
Privacy attorney Peter Hanna knows advertising is all around us, but argues there is a difference between seeing an ad for a personal injury lawyer on a billboard outside the hospital and on our phone while we are sitting in it.
We've all developed really an intimate relationship with our phones. They have all our photos, they have our communications, they have our emails, they have our movements, our calendars.
That's why the Attorney General in Massachusetts said no more. The office barred geofencing at healthcare facilities in the state. Lawmakers in Illinois also tried to curb where geofencing could be used, but the governor vetoed it.
So have a good meeting?
Yes.
Croxton says geofencing, when used right, is a good thing.
It is better to receive ads from folks that say, you know what, based on your location, this ad that I want to serve you is relevant.
Croxton says only a small slice of companies and groups that could benefit from geofencing use it. So the market is going to grow, especially in politics.
I could also see it in the upcoming 2020 elections. Let's say they're having a rally somewhere and you want to serve negative ads to all of the people that are at that rally.
We know it's already been used in Michigan. News reports say Democrats geofenced several precincts in 2016 to send ads to voters as they waited to cast their ballot. Republicans admit geofencing mega churches to send targeted ads to evangelical voters. And in Georgia, the GOP says several candidates here have used the technology too, but declined to comment on who or how.
I need my parents and friends to know where I am, but I don't need these companies and organizations to know my every move. That's weird to me.
You can turn off location services on your apps, but then some won't work. And other apps don't give you a choice. This game doesn't show up in my settings, but according to the fine print, it is still collecting my location.
So you think about Angry Birds, Words with Friends, the Weather Channel, Huffington Post.
Cruxton says these and hundreds of other apps create an exchange marketers can access. So pay attention to where you go.
Pay attention to where you go. Definitely pay attention to where you go. Absolutely.
So if a business is tracking you going in and out of a hospital, doesn't that sort of touch on a HIPAA violation?
The ruling right now is no, because what they're doing is they're tracking you based off of the ID on your phone, not your actual medical information or personal information.
You know, there are election rules, Rebecca, that say just how close you can put signs and advertisements to a polling place. How are they getting away with this?
That may actually be something that lawmakers want to take a look at. Some say getting an ad on your phone or opening an email while you're waiting in line and receiving information about a candidate that way are kind of the same thing, but geofencing at an actual polling precinct, some say that should probably be off limits.
Thanks, Rebecca. A Reveal investigation has uncovered explosive claims made by a whistleblower against a state agency responsible for troubled teens. Records show the former counselor repeatedly tried to report claims of misconduct and abuse. She says supervisors warned her to stop. A few months later, she was dead. It's difficult to find a picture without Angela Lockaby grinning ear to ear when she's with children.
She's always been very drawn to children and taking care of them and wanting to see them succeed and have a better life.
Lockaby's husband, Jay, says it was no surprise when she left her longtime job as an investigator with the Richmond County Sheriff's Department to become a counselor at the Department of Juvenile Justice.
She's had a passion for it.
Shortly after joining DJJ in 2015, though, Lockaby says his wife noticed suspicious behavior while working at the agency's Augusta Youth Development Campus. Not from the juveniles, but from the corrections officers.
There appeared to be a culture within DJJ that they just operate different.
According to emails Angela sent to supervisors over several months, she repeatedly voiced concern about a colleague having an inappropriate relationship with a 16-year-old, officers sneaking in money, pornography, and marijuana, and even a time when a female officer was holding a carton of urine, threatening to throw it on the youth.
But my wife intervened with this. Nothing happened to her. There was no type of disciplinary or sit down and this is unacceptable behavior for an officer.
Emails Angela wrote claimed supervisors warned her to stop. In one message she wrote, a supervisor said I was going to alienate myself if I kept reporting issues.
It's basically, you get on board with the way we do things here, or you're going to be out on your own.
According to a whistleblower lawsuit filed on Angela's behalf, those threats came to a head on July 28, 2017. You're looking at surveillance video recorded that day. It's inside the DJJ facility where Angela worked. That's her. DJJ tried to prevent the reveal from obtaining the video, but released it after threats of a lawsuit.
So this is the video footage of the unit?
It starts with Angela removing unauthorized food from juveniles' rooms. Later that day, state records showed teenagers threatened Angela for taking their contraband, saying, that gonna make me beat her. Shalana Welch is Lockaby's attorney.
I interpreted it as a threat. Ms. Lockaby interpreted it as a threat, and she requested that the youth be put in isolation and put behind the door to cool off, but that didn't happen.
Despite that threat, the video then shows a corrections officer escort a group of detained juveniles right in front of Angela's office. Agency policy requires officers to remain at the door until all the juveniles are inside the secure area. Instead, this officer walks away. Watch closely You can see a teenager walk into Angela's office, pull her over a desk, and punch her multiple times in the head.
Do you believe that officers put her in this position to get assaulted?
I do. They didn't like her. They made it known that she was a do-gooder.
The attack left Angela with a traumatic brain injury. Her doctor prescribed morphine and hydrocodone, powerful pain medication. Angela's husband says she was never the same.
Angie started sleepwalking. She started hallucinating.
It's okay.
6 months after the attack, Angela died. The medical examiner says she accidentally overdosed on the pain medication prescribed to treat her head injury.
Angie was a cop for 15 years. She's one of the toughest cops I knew. Her last 8 months, I don't know who she was.
But that surveillance video has another story to tell. The reveal uncovered DJJ left something out of its investigative report about Angela's attack. Take a look at this surveillance video recorded 3 hours before Angela's attack. It shows a corrections officer walk up to a juvenile, reach into her pocket, and hand something over again and again and again. 3 different times.
When you saw that, what was your reaction?
Well, what is she giving him? And why isn't it in the investigative report?
That officer is Takesha Thompson, the same officer seen in surveillance video leaving a juvenile unattended in front of Angela's office before he ultimately attacked her. Welch notified DJJ.
They acted like it was brand new information. If it was new information, it doesn't make sense that they would preserve 2 angles of the same camera footage.
DJJ reprimanded Thompson for misconduct this past March, 19 months after the incident. But Thompson didn't stay out of trouble long. 13 days later, DJJ caught her kissing a juvenile on the mouth.
I mean, I think it harms her credibility and it supports the concerns that Ms. Lockaby was raising.
DJJ admits it left the incident out of its report, but claims it had nothing to do with Angela's attack.
The first thing that goes in my mind is that someone is trying to cover up something.
State Senator Emanuel Jones says, based on our findings, he wants the state to convene a special task force to investigate potential cover-ups at the agency.
But if there's a lot of underreporting, imagine how many more cases there potentially could be out there, and imagine how much worse the problem could be. That's my concern.
So anything further from the DJJ on this?
So according to court records, in response to the lawsuit, the state denies any wrongdoing in Lockaby's case. We reached out to the agency's commissioner and the governor's office, no response.
So what does Senator Jones plan to do next?
So his next move is to write a letter to the governor outlining his concerns and what he believes the state needs to do to address what he believes is a pervasive problem. Senator Jones says the commissioner told him he would co-sign that letter. We'll see if that happens.
Up next.
Oh my God, you want to kill somebody.
I didn't ask for this, and it changed my life.
The case of a fatal crash and a big missed opportunity.
If you have a news tip or a comment on one of our investigations, email us at thereveal@11alive.com.
A driver slams head-on into opposing traffic. The fatal accident was witnessed by a woman who had been tailing the suspected impaired driver for several terrifying minutes, sharing every swerve and near crash with a 911 dispatcher who never sent help. Rewind to a separate crash the night before when a North Georgia deputy let the convicted drug abuser go, putting drivers on a collision course.
Oh my God, He's going to kill somebody. Oh, God, he just got rid of somebody else off the road.
Helpless. I was scared.
Please, oh, God, they got to hurry. He's still all over the road. Oh, my God, yes, he's in the other lane. Cars coming.
I knew something was going to happen. I just knew that was his last turn.
No! Damn it! Oh, God, hurry!
It ended worse than I thought.
How bad?
Bad enough to see things that you only see on horror movies.
Oh, God. Oh, God, he's dead. He's dead.
The call spanned nearly 9 minutes, 2 miles in Towns County, Georgia, 3 miles into North Carolina, before it ended with a head-on crash.
I don't think there's anything left of him.
Terry Silvers, the suspected impaired driver, crossed the center line and was killed instantly, a combined 100-mile-per-hour impact with the car driven by grandmother Tracy Stewart.
Why me? Because me and my granddaughter was riding down the road. We were talking, we were having a good time, and I didn't ask for this. And it changed my life.
After 4 surgeries, Stewart has a 6-inch plate in her dominant arm, a pin in her foot, and internal injuries.
I'll have to deal with this the rest of my life.
But she's still haunted by that 911 call.
Where are they at?
Every word, every second that ticks by is a second closer to an impact with you and your granddaughter.
It was very damaging for me to hear that call.
That is Terry Silvers.
And when she told him it was Terry Silvers, it should have took all seriousness to their head.
Because they knew.
Because they know Terry Silvers.
Terry Silvers. Yep, it's him.
This is police body camera footage from last November.
Could have hurt yourself and killed somebody else.
When Terry Silvers totaled his pickup truck in a 1-vehicle rollover.
Can he tow my house to right over here?
See any signs of him impaired?
Yeah.
Not that I can tell.
This lady right here, she feels quite sure he's under the influence of drugs.
He's so screwed up, he'll pass out driving.
Deputy Greg Joseph checked his eyes using horizontal gaze nystagmus, or HGN.
I did HGN, no indicators whatsoever. There's no indicators in his eyes at all that he's under the influence of anything.
But certain drugs can be that way. I mean, I know because I work dispatch.
While alcohol and some drugs cause a detectable eye stutter called nystagmus, opioids and stimulants do not. Terry Silvers had a long criminal record of prescription pill and meth abuse, including drug arrests in Towns County.
Knowing him is probably meth.
That's what somebody else was just saying.
That's what they're complaining about. I'm not doing anything. I don't have any indicators.
Towns County has a drug problem, the highest number of ER visits per capita for opioid overdoses in the state of Georgia. State records show Deputy Greg Joseph attended a full-day drug impairment class just a week before he relied solely on this HGN test to clear Silvers, a test that cannot detect opioids or meth.
Take a deep breath, below. Go. That's good. Thank you.
This is Deputy Joseph testing Terry Silvers at yet another one-car crash the night before the fatal collision.
Mr. Silvers, how many wrecks are you going to have on this road? See my finger? Follow with your eyes only, okay? No, that blue zero's on the box, and I can't find anything on HGN.
That's the citation number?
No, that's the case number for the report.
I'm sorry I had to call you out like this.
Well, I'd rather come out here and do this than having to pick your body up somewhere.
No, that's right.
He's turning in Cornerstone right now.
24 hours later,
there's a wall right there. They're passing. They're going to a call.
That's the siren of the same deputy's car passing the gas station where Terry Silvers had stopped right before the fatal collision.
All units, be on the lookout for a small white Toyota truck. It's going to be occupied by a silver subject. Call advised reckless driving.
Towns County 911 didn't dispatch Deputy Joseph, who kept driving away to back up another deputy and a Hiawassee officer on what turned out to be an unfounded intruder call.
I was just wanting to call you and say, really?
What? What did I do?
As soon as we get out and start clearing the house, y'all give out a bolo?
Yeah, I know. Well, now he's dead.
What?
Now he's dead.
What do you mean now he's dead?
Well, he wrecked, and now he's dead.
Well, dang it.
I feel like I'm living a living nightmare.
In a situation like this, seconds count.
Yeah.
The only people who could help in this case were driving the other way.
Yeah.
I told you I hurry!
Don't let somebody else have to experience what I've gone through.
So what was in the driver's blood?
Rebecca, we may never know. And the reason is that this death occurred in North Carolina, and the state medical examiner did not test Silver's blood for drugs, only alcohol, and that came back negative.
And what about more training for these deputies?
Andy, that's a great question. In fact, the state scheduled special training in Towns County for advanced roadside impairment detection and drug detection. That class was canceled simply because not a single Towns County deputy signed up for the training.
You didn't change the test score?
No.
You didn't change the answers?
A decade after one of the largest education cheating scandals in the nation, a convicted teacher remains defiant.
Your favorite, step out of the vehicle for me.
These people really put my freedom in the hands of a coin flip.
Imagine getting arrested and having no idea the decision was made on the flip of a coin. Without our intervention, what would have happened when you went into court?
I would have had no idea, and I probably would have pled no contest. Nobody would have known about it.
That's what we do. We reveal what's hidden, and we got this defendant's case thrown out because otherwise she wouldn't have known.
Welcome back to The Reveal. A decade after one of the largest school cheating scandals in history, 7 former Atlanta Public School employees are still in court fighting to clear their names. I sat down with one of the teachers who's out on appeal working to prove her innocence and the investigators behind the conviction.
This is his handprint.
The birth of Shawnee Robinson's child will forever be linked to one of the most trying times in her life. And it wasn't because of the baby.
This is just something like a little flyer that they put out, and it says, Shawnee is one of the 11 educators convicted and awaiting sentencing. She is expecting her first child and is due any day now.
Amari was born 10 days after Robinson and 10 other Atlanta Public School educators were convicted for cheating on state standardized tests called the CRCTs. Georgia used the scores to determine how well students were doing in math and reading and other subjects. When the 2009 CRCT results came back, struggling students miraculously had exceptional scores.
The students couldn't do it. You can't make that kind of progress under those circumstances, but yet the test results said that it was being made. It wasn't. It was a lie.
Former prosecutor Bob Wilson was one of the investigators then Governor Sonny Perdue appointed to look into what some suspected was widespread cheating, not by the kids, but by the educators themselves.
It started at the top. Dr. Beverly Hall was the superintendent of the schools.
So you think this is something Dr. Hall actually sat down and thought about?
Did she scheme it out? No, but she turned her head. Dr. Hall put immense pressure on her leadership team, especially in the academic side, and the principals to achieve certain scores and certain advancements. And she made it very clear, sitting right where we are right now, that she would accept no excuses and there would be no exceptions.
Some of Dr. Hall's own staff said as much during the trial.
My evaluation was tied to student achievement. It was a hard decision to make, but I just did it, and I know it was a wrong decision.
I honestly know the difference that one person, one educator can make in a person's life. And I wanted to be that person for kids.
Wilson's team, along with Fulton County DA Paul Howard's office, implicated 178 APS educators in the years-long cheating scandal.
Were you guys just trying to make an example out of APS because, other school districts had unusual test scores as well?
Atlanta's was systematic. APS went to massive extreme of wrongdoing, so much so that it was criminal.
Nearly half of the educators implicated either confessed or took plea deals, but not Robinson, pregnant and all.
I mean, it was horrifying. It was horrifying. I mean, just, you wake up one day and everything is normal. And then later you realize you've been charged with 2 crimes that could land you in prison for 25 years. And for what? I didn't do anything wrong.
You didn't change the test scores?
No.
You didn't change the answers?
No. I was angry that I had been falsely accused. I was angry that I had been charged with racketeering.
It was never our intention just to get at them. This is one thing that act did. It allowed us to try all of the defendants together.
Robinson has never doubted teachers cheated, especially those in economically disadvantaged areas. But she believes the district and state leaders use the teachers as scapegoats to avoid addressing larger problems in public education.
If you can place all the blame on the teachers, on educators, you don't ever have to fix any of the root causes on why cheating occurred.
I'm sorry, children were hurt. Face the truth. Stop making excuses for yourself. That abuse of power led to many a child being hurt because they didn't get the education they should have gotten.
There is a large number of children that are still, in my view, still suffering from the scores that were changed. I wish that there was some way that our community could go back and aid those children.
But time keeps moving forward. Robinson's son, Amari, is now 4. One more year closer to going into the same public education system that's now made his mother a convicted criminal, fighting to clear her name.
I want him to go to public school. I still believe in public education. I feel like there is hope if we can address some of these root issues.
Coming up on The Reveal.
The numbers didn't add up. They were not on grade level.
The road ahead for a cheated generation.
Some of those children might be in jail. Some of them might not have ever gotten a job.
When state investigators revealed a decade ago that thousands of students in the public education system had been cheated out of an education, there was community outrage. Several Atlanta public school educators were eventually prosecuted for changing test scores to make it look like kids were doing better in class than they actually were. Well, 10 years later, a Reveal investigation has found the programs that were meant to help those students catch up have largely missed their target.
I keep everything. My ultrasound pictures, the day they started walking, all their accolades from school.
Time has tried to make Erica Hurd forget about a lot.
We've come a long, long way.
But mementos she's kept hidden in boxes over the years are occasional reminders, like these long faded report cards.
I have them all so I can keep up with them. So when they become famous, these are gonna be archives.
2 of Erica's children, Christopher and Eric, were in elementary school when she found out they were among the more than 3,000 students identified as victims of the Atlanta public school cheating scandal. On average, researchers at Georgia State University found students affected by the cheating scandal lost up to half a year's worth of learning in certain subjects.
For me as a parent and a person that's went to APS, it really was something that hit me in my heart. He was not meeting standards, but he was passing the test. He had C's. The numbers didn't add up. They were not on grade level.
How far back would you say they were?
At least 2 years behind.
The 17-year-old, who was in 11th grade at the time, told the court she was several grades behind her classmates.
I'm still in middle school reading. I think it's the 6th grade reading level.
Former Governor Sonny Perdue even choked up in court at the thought of it.
These kids only get one shot. Elementary school, they only get one shot. I don't care whether, if they're being cheated on their behalf, they're being cheated.
With the country's eye on Georgia, local leaders made promises. They would make the kids whole. One of those promises turned into a program called Target 2021. The number represents the year the last impacted student would graduate from high school.
Doing nothing was not an option.
For the last year, Dina Rogers has been the APS coordinator for Target 2021, working out individual attention for the affected students.
10 years later, how are these students coping?
They're learning, they are thriving.
But this new report by Georgia State has a different conclusion. It says after 5 semesters, quote, the effect of Target 2021 participation on attendance is 0. It had no effect on students' grade point average in core academic subjects, And in some cases, Target 2021 students had slightly lower scores. In other words, the program has failed to hit its target.
Has APS once again cheated its students if the course that was supposed to help them has failed?
Well, the program has helped our students. If you look at his study, it's showing that there wasn't a statistical difference. It doesn't mean that we weren't making gains. It's just either the results were the same or it wasn't statistically enough to make a difference.
In the face of all of this, what researchers have done, how can we say the program is working?
Overall, we may not be seeing those huge numbers, but we have individual students and schools that are benefiting from the program.
So you're happy with what the program is doing?
I'm happy. Can we do better? Yes.
The reveal has also uncovered there was another program. Redemption Academy was to target the other 3,500 students who had already graduated APS when the cheating came to light. But we found the Fulton County DA's office never even got it off the ground as they promised.
When we started with what we thought was a noble idea, we did not realize how really difficult it was.
District Attorney Paul Howard says they needed $30 million and they couldn't find the people they were supposed to help.
Some of those children might be in jail. Some of them might not have ever gotten a job because of the poor educations they received.
Do you take any responsibility in that?
Oh yeah, I wish that I could have done a better job, even though I'm not an educator, I'm a prosecutor. I wish that I could have done something to help those children.
Do you have any intentions of actually creating this program or continuing to attempt to create it?
Well, maybe after your news story, maybe that'll happen.
For now, a failed promise, a missed target, and no redemption. But Rogers says APS isn't giving up.
We will not stop until our students are successful.
The data might not show it, but APS says parents and students are satisfied with the extra help their kids are getting in and outside the classroom because of Target 2021.
When they were small, this is Christopher.
Heard and her son Christopher are prime examples.
I think it's done exceptional for them, especially my children.
Before I was making C's, now I haven't had a C in high school at all. My future is gonna be successful.
And a lot of those parents do really love the program because they believe it addresses more than just the kids' classroom needs. APS has partnered with communities and schools, which gives them things like emergency rent assistance, hot food, and a lot of things they need at home.
Faith, back to the teachers. All these years later, this is still a very divided issue, still very emotional.
I'm curious, what's Robinson up to today?
So she's been focused on clearing her name. She actually is a stay-at-home mom now. She just authored her first book, and it's for her son to explain her side of the story. She wants him to read it when he grows up. As for the other teachers, we have more on them in this story on 11alive.com.
Coming up,
what you see here is that cherry eye.
Horrifying conditions that should have been prevented.
I mean, it's heartbreaking. If you can't report to the people creating the rules, who are you supposed to report it to?
If you have a news tip or a comment on one of our investigations, email us at thereveal@11alive.com.
When we started digging into animal cruelty cases and why it takes so long for authorities to make an arrest, you responded with appreciation, but also confusion. How could state inspectors visit a dog breeding facility but fail to see the abuses that seem so clear to animal rescues? Tonight, it is the sheriff that now must decide if what you're about to see counts as animal cruelty.
I see you.
The floor is clean. The cages meet state requirements. There is shelter, ventilation, and the dogs get food and water.
With her?
Sarah Ream says if we want to stop animal cruelty, we have to stop looking at the cages and start looking in.
And they'll be fixing what you see here is that cherry eye.
The breeder, who we've chosen not to name, gave Guardians of Rescue the dog and about 70 others. Ream is helping to care for several, including this Cocker Spaniel, Darla. They were told she wasn't feeding her puppies, but veterinarian Justin Card says it is possible she couldn't because of her filthy and matted fur.
They'll get like these intertwined mats of hair where they're basically impenetrable.
And on this day, she needed to have 21 teeth removed.
You can see the decay on all of the other teeth.
Vet reports say other dogs removed from the same property came in limping.
There's positive presence of heartworms.
There were flea infestations, ear and eye infections so severe they have yet to be diagnosed. Dental disease.
So there's no teeth? There's no teeth in the bottom. Everything is just actively, it basically corroded and fell off.
Or at least that's the vet's best guess.
He was the one.
Leah Moore thought this dog had a mammary gland tumor.
It turns out that it's a hernia and her bladder is encased in the hernia. Why the DOA didn't see that on the 5th of March when they were there is kind of a mystery, I think, to all of us.
March 5th. That's the last time the GDA, or Georgia Department of Agriculture, inspected the facility before Guardians of Rescue filed a complaint. Rescue groups believe these dogs are clear evidence of animal cruelty. But the GDA passed the facility and stated all animals appear to be receiving adequate and humane care.
That somebody can be charged with animal cruelty if, in fact, an animal is suffering. It doesn't say extreme suffering.
Attorney Jessica Rock helped write Georgia's animal cruelty law and has prosecuted these kinds of cases for more than a decade. But her main focus is training inspectors, law enforcement, and animal control to recognize cruelty.
It's the lens and the perspective that they go in there with and what they understand to be a violation or a crime.
The GDA can only issue violations, fine facilities, or revoke the license of those that fail to comply. In the past 3 years, it has taken administrative action against 8 locations. Most ended in probation.
Cumming police arrested Michelle Root last October.
Twice, law enforcement added criminal charges. While animal welfare advocates applaud the efforts, they say the GDA's own orders show an inconsistency in enforcement. The breeder, Happy Chihuahua, appealed a $10,000 fine stemming from accusations it failed to clip the dog's nails and remove mats in the fur. But there is no mention of poor grooming at the facility where these dogs were rescued.
It's pretty heartbreaking.
The GDA, Animal Control, and a state veterinarian did go back to the property in April. Records show they discussed, advised, and strongly recommended several things, but only required the breeder to get his remaining 250 or so dogs their rabies vaccination. The owner openly admits it's something he hasn't done in 4 or 5 years.
The one vaccination that is absolutely required for animals in Georgia is a rabies vaccination.
But that first requires someone in authority to notice. Animal Control says in the past 4 years, this is the first time someone from their office has been on the property. And until Guardians of Rescue brought up the issue, there is no evidence anyone from the state ever asked.
The only way we're going to stop this is if people start taking it seriously, we start actually charging people with crimes.
I called the breeder to ask him about the concerns raised by the rescues.
So if a dog's 2, 3, 4 years old and it has a problem and it needs to get its teeth cleaned, you would take it to get its teeth cleaned.
You can, yes.
But would you?
I'm not gonna. Well, I could if I thought it had to have its teeth cleaned. Yes.
He then asked that I send the rest of my questions to his attorney and hung up.
Hello? Are you still there?
The GDA also seems to have said enough. It has closed the rescue group's complaint unfounded.
If you can't report to the people creating the rules, who are you supposed to report it to?
Rebecca, the breeder was asked to get medical attention for some of his animals. Did he do it?
We're still checking to see if he finally got the dogs vaccinated for rabies. As for the animals that needed medical care, we were told that those were donated to another rescue. And while they are now getting treatment, the breeder who made money off of these dogs isn't the one who's actually paying for that medical care. It's the volunteers who just feel like it's the right thing to do.
The Department of Agriculture can issue fines for breaking the rules, but who actually decides if a breeder has committed any crime?
It's really up to the local jurisdiction, and I am told that Guardians of Rescue has started to give pictures and other information to the sheriff in Long County. It's going to be up to him and the district attorney there to decide if there were any criminal wrongdoings in this case.
Up next.
A 300-pound tire broke loose from its truck and hit a van.
Wheels fly off trucks and buses with startling frequency. Why aren't more schools and trucking companies using this 65-cent safety device that could save your life? We've all been there, driving just a few feet away from 18 spinning wheels. But would you have time to react if one of those 18 wheels was to suddenly come loose and hit your car?
911, what is the address of your home?
There's been an accident on 400. There's a woman unconscious in her car.
Okay. There's a wreck, a bad wreck. Someone's not breathing. Someone's trying to administer CPR.
Car in front of me was a tire flew off and hit her windshield, and she is unconscious. I am an RN. I am trying to get in her car. She's unconscious. Can you help me get her out of the car?
We're trying to get her out of the car.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
Juliana Shredaway's life came to a dead stop in the left lane of Georgia 400.
The force of that wheel was so great, it crushed the roof line of the car and killed the driver.
All because a single loose wheel flew off a pickup truck on the other side of the highway.
It's his left rear wheel that came off, came over the median wall and hit that car.
Juliana that morning was on her way to work. She was really doing what we all do, something very routine. The next moment, she was gone.
The 49-year-old mother never made it to work or home to her 2 children. Was this just a freak accident or a common occurrence, both predictable and therefore preventable?
A 300-pound tire broke loose from its truck and hit a van.
The tire just flew off and hit my car.
It was complete chaos when a tire broke loose in the middle of the freeway.
The video shows the tire crossing the lot and smashing through a clinic window.
The tire hit his van and it almost hit mine.
17 cars were damaged.
A tire came across from the other side, crushing the roof on the driver's side with the force of a small ball.
Police and state troopers, though, say that this is very rare, a freak accident even.
Federal records show loose wheels cause crashes on U.S. highways an average of 3 times a day. Just ask this bus driver in Florida. 8 cameras captured this crash on I-95. And 1 camera captured the cause. The left rear wheel came off at highway speed, sending the Palm-Tran bus into a pickup. A 3rd vehicle rear-ended the city bus, causing the engine to explode.
Oh, God! Oh, God! Are you okay? I think so.
The driver had no way to tell a mechanic had failed to tighten the lug nuts. Until now, this 65-cent piece of plastic could have prevented the bus crash and all the others. Here's how they work. Let's take a truck wheel. Can you tell just by looking which one of these lug nuts is loose? Now add the wheel check devices. Over tightened lug nuts, they form a day-glow circle of safety. If one lug nut is loose, even a quarter turn, the arrow points away from the others, providing an instant visual alert that something's not right. After the I-95 crash, Palm Beach County installed torque indicators on every single bus in the Palm-Tran fleet.
The giant wheel of a school bus came off when flying through the air and crashed into this car.
The same thing happened after this school bus crash in Charlotte.
The bus's rear tire flew off. 26 kids were on the bus at the time, and it caused a very serious wreck.
Every school bus in the North Carolina district now has these wheel check torque indicators. Atlanta Public Schools has installed them on some buses, but not all. School buses in Cherokee and other counties are slowly getting the safety devices, while others, like Cobb Schools, don't use them at all. MARTA doesn't use the torque indicators on its fleet of city buses, but a subcontractor uses them on MARTA's smaller paratransit buses. We drove through 2 major Atlanta area truck stops, and out of more than 100 big rigs, we found the safety devices on only 1 tractor trailer. They're almost unheard of on smaller truck wheels, like the one that killed Juliana Shredaway.
Tire flew off a vehicle and hit her windshield.
This could have been any of us.
The average American needs to know that there's this thing out here that could really save lives.
A 65-cent plastic part. They are ubiquitous in Canada. They are almost unheard of in the United States. Why isn't it on every truck in America?
If Juliana's tragedy could save lives, I think that would be the most amazing, incredible thing that could actually happen.
So why are these safety devices so common in Canada and rare here in the U.S.?
Faith, one of the only trucks we saw with this safety device in the metro Atlanta area had Ontario license plates. Here's why. There's a $50,000 absolute liability fine if your truck wheel comes off in Canada, not the U.S.
So are they required there but not here?
They're not required, Andy, because you don't need a law if you incentivize it with that fine. The $50,000 fine, that's enough to get truckers and trucking companies to put these on their trucks voluntarily. In the U.S., the fine is only about $150.
If you have a news tip or a comment on one of our investigations, email us at thereveal@11alive.com.
Turn around.
No.
Turn around. Our investigations have impact.
Is there a reason why you won't talk with me?
You've recently been indicted.
This is on the record.
Change laws.
We're going to look to see where maybe we need to change the laws.
Expose crimes. Crimes that lead to murder indictments.
We would not be able to prosecute this case without that video.
See the 11 Alive investigators change the face of local news.
You've been watching The Reveal, a show dedicated to impact investigations.
And we'll see you this Sunday at 6 for another edition of The Reveal.